So Descartes has the idea of the evil demon, but it's also termed the evil genius. I think in the original French, he writes, do I dare say it in French? It's
That's your call.
mauvais génie. Mauvais, okay.
Mauvais génie.
There you go.
Bad genie or bad genius or whatever.
Essentially, yeah, exactly. And so evil genius, essentially, which is interesting because Christoph is this character of the genius that uses his genius for dark purposes. And that idea that Descartes had was essentially that how do we know things are real? How do we know that our world is our world and not an entire illusion created by an evil genius, a demon?
There is this is rare, but this is an emergency word of the podcast alert. And every now and then, because something just...
we need a special, like, what was the sound I was going to do?
No, that's
We're
the
interrupting.
NBC sound.
I don't give a shit.
You
I
can't
like
take
it.
that.
I think
Make
it's
it
a
different.
wonderful...
I'll make up a
that
little
off,
theme and I'll play it and I'll edit it in over your words and it'll be an emergency.
Okay.
Genius, late 14th
us.
century. Hey, tutelary or moral spirit who guides and governs an individual through life. From Latin genius, but this is interesting to me because it is a kind of spirit that we're talking about here. Yeah. Maybe you had already covered that, but to me, I guess I'm thinking back to our Hereditary Part 2. We talked about.
Wow, we're really hardcore. Go watch that episode,
well,
guys.
This is actually the second episode. We talked about the daemon. This is what made me release the emergency word of the podcast because daemon, and then I thought genius, but they sound like they actually sound related. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and they may be. I mean, one is just the French. We're using the French for it, génie, but it is that idea of a Descartes. It's likened to a demon, essentially. But I don't know if you can particularly conflate it with the Western demon because he doesn't necessarily say it's like this entirely evil. There's also just this idea that it's a malevolent.
Well, genius seems to come from Latin, and what I'm wondering if there's a relation from the Latin of genius back to daemon, which I think which is Greek. But anyway, that's for another. That
is for another one.
So
the thing about Descartes is that he was kind of hardcore with the skepticism. Because, I mean, you got to understand how much of a fucking skeptic you have to be to say, all this shit, what if it's a demon? What if everything that I know is an illusion created by a demon whose only purpose is to make me believe that I know what I know? How would I unravel this scheme to figure out what is real and what is not? So Descartes, bless his soul, this man had a dedication to skepticism that no one fucking has anymore. No one fucking has this shit. That's what pisses me off so much. Everybody wants to say that I know that this thing. What if you instead asked about what you don't know? What a cool fucking idea to approach the world asking and said, how do I know? Ooh, that mic must have exploded just now. Like I got so close to it. But how do I know? How do I know that this is true? How do I know that that is real? How do I know that this is a fact? How do I know? Where do I get these ideas from? Maybe don't say that you think it's a demon. That may not be accepted anymore as a line of questioning. But you could consider what ideas you may have picked up along your life that are poisoning your thought process. And that is the Cartesian approach to skepticism. So he essentially had this idea that if you had just one false belief, it could leak out into your other thinking processes and poison them so as to make all of your thinking and your understanding of the world inaccurate. So what did he do? He tossed all that shit out. He basically tried to unravel all of his thought so as to make sure and examine every belief that he did have and say, can I prove that this is real? Is this truly accurate? How do I know? Can you imagine? It's like cleaning your dead grandmother's attic and going through everything and saying, well, what is this? You don't do it. You just hire someone. You're like, get rid of the shit. You know, like, I want to keep this thing because I already know it, but I'm going to ignore the rest of the stuff. He went through every little dust-covered trinket and said, what is this? Where did it come from? What does it mean? Do I have use for it? Can I use it reliably? And what he found out is there's not a lot that of our thinking that is solid. And that's the skeptic's way. But it's also Truman's way. Because Truman, in the end of the movie, says, and it's just, I love it. It's a beautiful line. Was any of it real? It is very like Jim Carrey being dramatic. Was any of it real? I love it. And he says, though, a really important line that I liked, and I actually like how he delivered it, because he's finding out that so much of what he believed was the real world was illusory. And his response at one point is, but you never had a camera in my head. And this is, I think, very much like Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Truman takes solace in the fact that his thoughts were still real. No matter what the world was around him, no matter what illusions were created, what came out of him, his own thoughts, were originated within him. He was real because of his thoughts. You want to add something? I'm going to give you a moment there. Breaking the monologue.
I was actually watching.
You just hang out there watching things?
Not just now. I mean,
okay.
In the recent past, I was watching the documentary series Civilization by Kenneth Clark, A Personal View, which is from the late 60s. And there's a short bit about René Descartes. And you were saying something along the lines of, people these days don't approach their own beliefs with as much skepticism. And, I mean, he was obviously an extremely ruthless interrogator of himself, we'll say. But you have to understand, again, and I go back to this sometimes, René Descartes was born at the very end of the 1500s. His mom died in childbirth. They didn't think he would live because of that. He had extremely poor health. He went to a Jesuit academy when he was like 12 years old. Became a military officer and was a mercenary. He was actually a soldier and a mercenary for the beginning of his life. And then had a vision in a room where there was a fireplace or oven or something along these lines. It's interesting to me that so much of the beginning of what we consider rationality, reason, science. So if you think about figures like Descartes, you think about figures of Newton or Isaac Newton. And I think I mentioned about this last time. Isaac Newton was really big into the study of alchemy and reading the Bible and looking for hidden messages in the Bible. You think of him.
I think he was into like theosophical thought.
That's
like esotericism.
But that didn't come. Theosophical, I always have a problem with that word. That's later.
No, that's a specific society.
Right. But of course, he was looking for coded messages in the Bible. He was studying alchemy, all these kinds of things. I just think that it's interesting. We see these people in the 1700s, in particular, the Age of Reason, the Enlightenment figures, as these strictly rational, scientific people because they came up with a lot of those rules and thoughts.
Yeah.
But, René Descartes actually had dreams thinking that in this room, he thought that a divine spirit revealed to him this new philosophy. And so, I don't know. I just think we got to remember there's always this, if you want to call it irrational or spiritual belief, inherent in a lot of what we think of as early science and early rationality, at least as inspiration to it somehow.
Yeah. Well,
in some
I
of the
think
figures.
that's like in a way.
And also, Descartes had a hard life. That was my point. Sorry, my original point was that Descartes had a hard life, and maybe that is what helps people sometimes take the leap into investigating themselves so much. Because like Jim Carrey in Sea Haven, if your life is going fairly well, okay, it may not be extraordinary. Your wife may just be whatever. Your job may be whatever, but it's not bad. He has time to relax. He has his friend. They, I don't know, hit golf balls, whatever.
Yeah.
If there isn't anything that forces you to look for something else, and I don't think that most people do.
And that's the idea of, sometimes something cracks in the world. And in a way, that was even my approach to this movie. When I first saw the movie, I was kind of like, hey, I'm chilling. Okay, cool movie. And then the next time I saw it, it was, I had a different approach to it because I had lost some of my youthful naivety in the past years. And so I came to it more in a place of, oh, let me see what going on here. And there you go. When you look, you find more than what you had assumed was there previously. But you have to look. And that's one of the main questions I think of this film is that, you watch Truman, and in a way, what makes it such an important film is that it's the journey that every human being must take in some regards, which is you let go of your own, you push your limitations. That's one of the major things is that Truman pushes the limitations of his world, his own limitations, and that's how he finds more. Once he starts to push to the edge, to see what else is there, to pursue the cracks in his world. And really the question is, how many people are truly willing to question their world as ruthlessly as Truman? Most would rather not ask, how's it going to end?